Believe it or not, Upfront Fares was just introduced to the Delaware Beach part of my driving territory, and this is how I took advantage of it on Memorial Day weekend. Hey, what's up, Rideshare World? Chuck Driver here. So, Upfront Fares was introduced to part of my driving territory in 2022. However, only Lyft implemented it through my entire driving territory. And Uber, for whatever reason, did not implement Upfront Fares at the Delaware Beach part of my driving territory. I believe this is due to the interconnections of driving regions as they overlap one another. For example, I drive out of the Philly market and I can drive in Southeast Pennsylvania, South Jersey, and all of Delaware. And all of these driving territories overlap with other driving regions. I was, however, completely fine with this setup at the Delaware Beaches. Because we all know that Upfront Fares, even though that they show vital information as to where the pickup and the drop-off location are, they have suppressed driver wages since being introduced. Essentially, both rideshare apps are squeezing both the driver and the passenger at the same time for the greater good of their profits. But that's neither here nor there. I personally prefer the rate card over Upfront Fares any day, even though I cannot see the drop-off destination. And I prefer it this way because at least I know the minimum rate that I'm gonna receive. And there is zero manipulation by these rideshare apps when the rate card applies to each fare. But my time has come at the Delaware Beaches as Upfront Fares have finally arrived. Only South Jersey still awaits before my entire driving territory has been converted over to Upfront Fares. And I will be driving there in South Jersey later this summer to test out that area. I'm going to drive at the Jersey Shore points, and I'm going to be keeping my fingers crossed that it remains rate card fares for the foreseeable future. But there are both pros and cons with every single Uber update. For the most part, there are more cons. Every upgrade has essentially been a downgrade for the drivers, as Uber doesn't change anything or update anything merely for driver improvement. They do it for their bottom line. They may market it as such, but there's always an advantage in favor of these rideshare companies. As they say with gambling, the house always wins, and that too applies to these rideshare apps. But overall, I was able to take advantage this weekend of driving rideshare at the Delaware Beaches because I know my territory very well. So after getting set up at my campsite, I hit up the Starbucks a little bit before 8 p.m. to start my weekend's journey. A long weekend ahead of driving awaited, so I needed as much caffeine as I could to get me through the night and into the early morning, as I expected to drive anywhere from 3 a.m. the earliest to 5 a.m. the latest. And then the first ping came in, and I didn't even realize it at first, just saw an undesirable trip radar request came through and dismissed it. But then it finally hit me. It sunk in. Upfront Fares was at the Delaware Beaches.
Oh,
Nope, this can't be true, I was thinking. But then I went back to check out the screenshot to make sure I just wasn't making things up in my head. But nope. A lot of thoughts were going through my head at once. Anger, rage, disappointment, then sadness. I tried calming myself down by telling myself that maybe this will be a good thing because I'll finally be able to see the drop-off location, the Delaware Beaches. But only time would tell, and I was already down here to work, over an hour from my house, so there was no going back, and I might as well just see how things shake out. And it shook out pretty well, making roughly $1,300 for the entire weekend. I made close to $300 Friday night in 16 trips working both apps with some generous cash tips, and I quickly adapted to my new advantage of being able to see the drop-off destination with Upfront Fares. Because usually I wouldn't mind longer drop-offs with the rate card. You had a 50-50 chance of it being a banger, and you'd get one unicorn trip per night, trips that I'd never see at any other part of my driving territory, hence calling it a unicorn. With these unicorn trips, Uber would actually turn the jets on even with the rate card, like a hidden surge. But this was no longer the case with Upfront Fares, so I decided to keep it as close as possible to the action-busy areas, declining almost all long trips. And on Saturday, I made over $500 in 25 trips. Again, working both apps, but starting my night much earlier by 5 p.m. And this time on Saturday, I ventured outside of the busy action areas and took some longer trips. Knowing my driving area very well, I knew from experience that there would be return trips available back to the busy area during certain times of the night. And like clockwork, boom, back and forth from Delaware Beach to Delaware Beach I drove, cleaning up on the long trips, then only taking short trips during the bar closing time so that I could stay close to the busy areas to capitalize on surges. However, I didn't receive any surges through Uber on both Friday and Saturday night, which has never happened driving rideshare this busy weekend at the Delaware Beaches. Making it even more strange, Lyft had surges but Uber didn't, which is mind-blowing in my territory. Usually, if Lyft is surging, Uber is surging 2 to 3 times greater. I started Sunday just a little later than I wanted, but still finished over $450, 26 trips between both apps, and some more generous tips. One was a cash tip on an $18 10-minute trip.
Keep that, brother. Oh, thanks, man. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. You're good, man. All right. Thank you. I appreciate it. Hey, appreciate it, too. That's how you earn $40 tip. Hell yeah.
And with Sunday, I perfected my prior day's strategy of driving and staying close to the busy areas during bar closing time while venturing away on long trips only during advantageous times. If it wasn't for me starting late, I probably would have done better Sunday than I did Saturday. But again, there were 0 surges on Sunday, which marks the first time that I drove in this part of my territory on Memorial Day weekend and didn't receive a single Uber surge. Not one. And as you can see, even from last year and other prior years, I've absolutely killed it with the surges down here on Memorial Day weekend. But did Upfront fares have anything to do with this? Remember how I mentioned earlier that with every upgrade, there is a downgrade. Well, are these lost surges a downgrade? Has Uber perfected their algorithm at the Delaware Beaches, knowing how to prioritize drivers to satisfy passenger demand? Or maybe that there is finally an oversupply of drivers in this area after all these years of me cleaning up driving here? Or maybe it's all the above. Anyway, what are your thoughts? Please comment below. And as always, I'll see you in the next video.